Welcome to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey, a podcast to encourage, educate, and equip you to care for children and youth through adoption, foster, and kinship care. Hosted by an adoptive mom with over 22 years of kinship and adoptive parenting experience. She's on this journey with you. Please welcome Sandra Flach.
Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in our affliction so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. That is 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. I'm your host, Sandra Flach. Welcome to this special episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, where I am here to serve you by encouraging you and equipping you. Oh, gosh, I'm a mom of 8, 5 through adoption, including 2 young adult sons, both who were diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome when they were little. So I know the struggles that come from raising children with trauma histories and prenatal exposure to alcohol. My boys are now 20 and 22. So I've been on this journey for a very long time, and I'm still on this journey. Our boys are still at home. So I hope that you will find this podcast to be an invaluable resource as you navigate your parenting journey, because it is something that I wish I had back in those early days. My adoptive parenting journey started in 1999, so there wasn't a whole lot out there back then. I don't even think Dr. Purvis had written The Connected Child yet. So it's been a long journey, and we just want to be a resource for you. Speaking of resources, my devotional book, Soul Care Saturday, 52 Devotions for Foster and Adoptive Moms, will be releasing this fall. In fact, as we speak, my editor finally got my edits back to me. So I will be, over the next couple of weeks, getting the edits edited, I guess is what I would say. And we're going to be getting, moving forward finally and being able to release. In my prayer, and if you would say a prayer, I would greatly appreciate that. We really want to be able to release it in November during National Adoption Month. So that's our goal, is to get it released in November. We'll launch it. You'll stay tuned to this podcast, to our social media, and you'll be able to be in the know when we're really about to do that. So there's that. I also hope that you'll check out our website, which if you want to find all of the adoption and foster care journey stuff, it lives on the Justice for Orphans website, which is the parent nonprofit to all of the work that we do here for you. So you would go to justicefororphansny.org, and right on the homepage, you will see a beautiful, it's actually in 2 places on the homepage, but there's a beautiful circle on the left that says, I think it's on the left, it says the Adoption and Foster Care Journey. And if you click on that, it will take you into this space that has the podcast, it has my blog, it has all of our training, the FASD training, as well as our support group, information on how to get parent coaching if you're looking for more of a one-on-one. And so that all resides there. So please check out our website. And also follow our socials. You can follow the Adoption and Foster Care Journey on Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, we are, you would look for us at AFC_journey. And on Facebook, we are just the Adoption and Foster Care Journey. So I would love to be able to connect with you there. Those pages are fairly new. We're kind of branching out from just putting everything on the Justice for Orphans pages. So we're really trying to grow our followers there. So please follow us over there, because I love to connect with you. And I just got back from the Christian Alliance for Orphans Summit in Houston, Texas, where I met some of you that I've never met before in person, and made some new friends, some amazing parents who came to my workshop and our meetup. and stopped by our table. And it was just such a huge blessing to be able to connect with you folks in person. One of my very, very favorite things to do. And I was also able to get some hugs and hear from some of you who have been praying for our family. And I will get to more on that in a couple of minutes. But next, I will be at the Replanted Conference in Chicago on October 23rd through 25th. I will be leading a workshop there, and I will be having an informational table, an exhibitor booth, I guess we call it. So if you're coming to Replanted, you can stop by and see me, say hi, as well as if you are just learning about it, you can. There's a link in our show notes where you can find out more about Replanted. It's just right around the corner, but it's not too late for you to be able to attend if you're interested. And also right around the corner, I guess, I don't know if I like the sound of that, but 2026, right? So I will be at the Filled Retreat. This is Jamie Finn of Focus, Foster the Family, Jamie Finn. Her Filled Retreat is from January 30th to February 1st in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I will be there also doing a workshop. So it is my first time getting to go to Filled. So maybe some of you listening have gone before. Maybe you haven't heard about it. So also link in the show notes about Refilled. And if it is my understanding that it's a retreat for foster and adoptive moms, and it sells out quickly. So if this resonates with you, go check it out and register before it does fill up, and then you wouldn't be able to get in. So anyway, that is all of those kinds of announcements. And I mentioned at the top that this is a special episode. It's going to kind of be a roller coaster episode of highs and lows. And isn't that the adoptive and foster parent journey, highs and lows? So we're going to kind of go on a little bit of a roller coaster ride, if you don't mind. But starting with the high, starting with the excitement, is this episode is actually our 500th show. Now you might ask, where are all those episodes, right? Well, to give you a little history for a minute about this show, way back in 2013, we were asked by a little local Christian radio station here in upstate New York if we would consider having our own radio show. By our, I mean our brand new nonprofit, Justice for Orphans. And if we would talk about on this show adoption and foster care and orphans and like all of the things. And we had just established JFO. And really at the time in those early days, we were about advocacy, advocating for the church. Our mission was to rally the church for the cause of the fatherless. So we were advocating for the church to get involved in adoption and foster care. And so we would interview adoptive parents, foster parents, agency folks, orphan ministry leaders around the world to engage the church, to inspire the church to get involved in some way, right? We know the phrase, we are all called to do something. We might not all be able to bring children into our families, but we're all called to care and called to do something, the whole James 1:27, right? So that's what we were in the early days. And the name of the radio show was Orphans No More. So it's also the name of my book, because we really believed that while, we're no longer orphans once we've come to Christ and we're adopted into the family of God, we also don't want there to be any physical orphans. Every child deserves a safe, loving family, whether that is their biological family that just needs some strengthening and support to be successful, or sometimes kiddos need a temporary foster placement until reunification can be possible. And sometimes reunification isn't possible, and a child needs permanency and they need an adoptive family. And we also know, of course, there are a lot of relatives, a lot of grandparents stepping in and doing kinship that we know that it's called now, right? So we wanted to talk about all of those things on the show. And we wanted to get the church engaged in that. So that's what we did for many years. And somewhere along the way, podcasts kind of became a thing, and we started repackaging our radio show episodes into podcasts. And again, it was called it was called Orphans No More. So we were doing that from 2013 till about 2019. And then in 2019, the radio station that we were on sold their airspace, which was talk radio, to a Christian music station, and they became solely a music station. So all of us folks who had radio shows, talk shows, had to go find other platforms to have our shows on. And when you're on radio, you have to pay for airtime. So God was faithful to provide the funds that we needed to do that for that season. But we felt like, you know what? Podcasts are so popular. They've become so popular by 2019 that we decided, why buy airspace when we could just be a podcast? So we started off in 2019. We just were a podcast. And as we really grew as a podcast, we started hearing from listeners. We started hearing from you. And what we found out was, gosh, these aren't folks who are just interested in becoming foster or adoptive parents. When you listen to a podcast, you are intentionally tuning in. The radio, you might accidentally tune in, but if you're going to listen to a podcast, you're on purpose going to that podcast and listening. And as we were hearing from listeners, we discovered that our listeners are already doing this. They are foster and adoptive parents. They are kinship parents, and they're tuning in for encouragement and for community and for support and to learn and to grow and to become, better foster and adoptive parents, right? We wanted to learn and to grow. And so then I realized, my goodness, our listeners are moms like me, parents like me, right? I'm an adoptive parent for over 20 years. And this is a show that I needed way back then. And now we are able to provide this. So it was kind of like stepping on holy ground for me, because it was like, these are my people. This is, I want to make sure that we're not just talking about stuff, but that if you're going to take the time to listen to this show, I want to make sure that we are filling your cup, that you're getting something out of this, that this is worth your time to tune in. So around 2020, 2021, we changed the name of the podcast. We were no longer Orphans No More. We became the Adoption and Foster Care Journey. And we used this big long name really to be able to make it so when people searched adoption podcasts, foster care podcasts, they would find us. So we became the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, and we're still interviewing adoptive and foster parents and professionals, right? You guys are my people. I have to say that this podcast is one of the most favorite things that I get to do every week, because I feel like it's like we're sitting around a table having a cup of coffee and sharing. And although I don't get to hear from you, I do get to hear from you when you send us emails and you leave comments. And I love that. And thank you for those of you that do that. And I hope that you'll consider doing that. But it's just a way for us to connect. And I love that. So we continue to do those things. And then there's some special features about this podcast. If you're a newer listener, you might not realize that every May, we focus on Foster Care Month. We focus on foster care as a topic. So I'll specifically interview foster parents and professionals in this space. In June, I like to do some episodes focusing on the dads, because foster and adoptive dads, we don't always get to hear from them. So I try to get some interviews during June, focusing on the dads. September is International FASD Awareness Month, Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder Awareness Month. So every episode in the month of September focuses on FASD. Then in November, which is, of course, National Adoption Month, we talk a lot about adoption. And I also weave in some episodes about gratitude, because, of course, Thanksgiving happens in November. And then in December, we have started a tradition of every December episode is just me with no guest. And I focus on Advent. So I'll bring you each week, we bring you an Advent themed episode. So one week it's hope, one week it's joy, one week it's love, one week it's peace, and just sharing and, giving you an encouraging, inspirational message each week throughout the month of December, which can be extremely an extremely difficult season for our families, right? So, and since September 2021, FASD has really become a major topic on this podcast. This isn't an FASD specific podcast, but in some ways it is, because I weave it into almost every conversation because it is so relevant for foster and adoptive parents to know about FASD. So we talk a lot about it on this show. And then our favorite resident doctor we often have in the house, and that's Dr. Jared Brown. A couple of years ago, I did a series of like 20 plus episodes with Dr. Jared Brown because he specializes in FASD, trauma, autism. He's got like 5 master's degrees and all of the things, and PhDs, and he's just become one of our most popular guests. Our episodes with Dr. Jared Brown are some of the highest downloaded episodes. And so we have those episodes. And now what I've been doing lately is once a month, we have Dr. Brown on the show because he's just such a treasure in this space. So, and if you're interested in finding those episodes, you can go to our website. I know some of you are listening on Spotify and Apple and all of that, but it's super easy. If you go, if you want to find those Dr. Jared Brown episodes, probably the easiest way to do it maybe is going to our website, justicefororphansny.org, link in the show notes, and then click on the adoption and foster care journey, and you'll see podcast. And we have all of the episodes with Dr. Brown in a special section on that page so that you can find those more easily. And we do such great in-depth topics with him. Right now, we're doing a series of episodes. So when we do one a month, we've been sticking to the topic of neuroscience. So neuroplasticity, neuroscience, and looking at things like trauma and attachment and FASD and all of these different things through the lens of a neuroscience lens. So those are huge episodes, and we continue to have him on as a guest. And I'm really I don't know how I want to say, proud to say that over the past 12 years of doing this, we have released a new episode every single Monday for 12 years. I think, in all honesty, I think there have been 2, maybe 3 times in 12 years that we repeated an episode, and it was either because I was super sick or I was traveling. So we maybe skipped, and just kind of, released a different one that we had already released. But by and large, over the past 12 years, every Monday you have had a new episode drop into your inbox, on your podcasts that you follow. So on your phone, right? So, and I am very passionate about doing that because I am an avid podcast listener. And when I'm following a podcast that I love, I don't like it when, it's, because I listen to my podcast, maybe like you do, when I'm putting on my makeup or going for a walk or driving in the car or, cleaning the house or folding the laundry or whatever I might be doing. And when I'm going through my podcast and I want to listen to all the new episodes, and there might be, sometimes I'll have a favorite podcast and there's a gap, like maybe they won't release a new episode for a month or 3 months. And I get discouraged with that because if I'm looking for a podcast that I love to follow, I want it there when I go there to listen to it. So you won't be disappointed here because you will find an episode every week. I can promise you that because we've been faithful to do that for the past 12 years. So you'll never run out of content here on this show. You'll have us every week. So, and that is because my heart and my passion is to minister to you, to foster and adoptive parents, especially moms. I want to encourage you all. I want to equip you. I want to provide this community for you. And I want to be in this community with you because I need you. I need this community as well on my parenting journey because it is, as you know, a hard and lonely journey. There are ups, there are downs, and we need each other. We need to be comforted. That is, and I'm going to share in just a moment how that's been a big part of my story the past few weeks is needing to be comforted and needing to be encouraged as well.
Sandra Flach, host of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, and FASD educator Debbie Raymond invite you to join Hope for the FASD Journey, a virtual support community for parents and caregivers raising individuals with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, diagnosed or not. This faith-based support community meets online 3 times each month, features special VIP guests, and a private Facebook group for members only, which includes Soul Care Saturday video devotionals led by Sandra and Deb. Both Sandra and Deb are adoptive moms raising kids with FASD and facilitators of the Facets neurobehavioral model. For details and to register, visit justicefororphansny.org/hope-community. That's justicefororphansny.org/hope-community.
So, needing to be comforted in this life, along this parenting journey, we experience those high highs and those low lows. And the good news is that through it all, God is with us. He's with us on the mountaintop when things are going well, and we give him the glory for that. And he's also with us in the valley. Sometimes the valley feels more like a pit, and we may be grieving, and God is with us in those times as well. A while back, one of my blog posts was titled "Goodness in Grief." It was focused on the good and the grief, and I was in Psalm 118 during that time. So I'll read just a few verses that really spoke to me from Psalm 118. Verse 1 says, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever." Right? So it's easy to say, give thanks to the Lord when things are feeling good, when we're on that mountaintop. But it also goes on to say in verse 5, "In my distress, I prayed to the Lord, and the Lord answered me and rescued me." Because we can go from those high highs to those low lows. But then it circles back around in verse 29. Psalm 118, verse 29 says, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever." So whether you're in the high high or the low low, we need to give thanks to the Lord. His love endures forever. He is always with us, wherever we are, on the mountaintop or in the pit. Now, I opened with 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 3 through 4 for a very specific reason. And let me reread that to you. "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God." So I want to encourage you today about being comforted and comforting each other. Some of you know, especially if you're a follower on our social media and follow me specifically on social media, our family experienced a tragedy recently on September 13th. My 3-year-old grandson, Killian, slipped into the arms of Jesus. If you've been a follower over the past few years, especially 3 years ago, around the time that Killian was born, and you followed me, you know that he was born with a congenital heart defect. His mama is my daughter, Melissa, who was our daughter who we adopted through a kinship placement when she came to live with us when she was 8 years old, and then we adopted her formally when she was 14. And I was making many trips out to Denver where he was born. He had multiple open heart surgeries and procedures the first year of his life, but he's been home. He's been doing wonderfully. He was doing all the things, getting all his doctor's appointments, everything was checking out great. He started preschool at the end of August. So things were going really, really well. So what happened was completely and totally unexpected and blindsided all of us, really. I got a call from my daughter on Saturday, September 13th. She was distressed and panicked and hysterical is probably a better word, that he was not responsive and he was in the ambulance and on his way to the hospital. And so I said, get to the hospital and call me from there. And I immediately began to activate. I put it out on social media asking for prayer. And then everybody who was in my text messages on my phone quickly got, please pray for Killian. He's unresponsive and on his way to the hospital. And unfortunately, he did not make it. He probably had a cardiac arrest and died instantly at home, and went to be with Jesus. And so many people from across the country were praying for our family, because when I put that first prayer request on there, people were praying. And then it was just really minutes later that I knew that he actually hadn't made it. And I had to wait a bit for my daughter to post something. And then I had to start telling people that he hadn't made it and that our family really, really needed prayers. And which, if you were one of those folks praying for our family, thank you, thank you, thank you. We could feel the presence of God, and we could feel the prayers of God's people, because that's what held us up. You see, Slava and I, our son, 20-year-old son Slava with FASD, we're actually in the process of packing our suitcases to go to Washington, D.C. for the FASD United Impact Week, because our organization is an affiliate of FASD United. And I was going to bring Slava because there's several people who attend that event that are young adults and adults with FASD as well. And it was going to be an opportunity. We were looking forward to this trip. We were so excited. We were packing. We were going to be leaving the very next morning. And then all of a sudden, I found myself having to instantly pivot and packing for a very different kind of trip, had to cancel everything for our DC trip and make flights, because my daughter, I live in upstate New York. My daughter and son-in-law live in Wyoming. So within 24 hours, my husband and I were in Wyoming with our kids. And Slava did very well with that. Our kids don't like change. They don't like transitions or disruptions. And my son Slava is very sensitive. If people are hurting or upset, he has a hard time with that. So I was just so, I was concerned about him and leaving him home. But my daughter-in-law, Anne specifically, and then a couple of my other adult kids, they held down the fort at home with Slava so he could stay home in our home and had support day and night. And so he actually did very, very well. And I had peace with because I'm his mom, and I have, he has very real needs. And our daughter and son-in-law in Wyoming needed us. And so we went to Wyoming for 5 days and walked through some of the hardest things I have ever experienced in my life. But again, we felt God's presence each day, and you could literally feel the prayers of his people. And I just came back from CAFO, as I mentioned, and so many of the folks from CAFO leadership to fellow presenters that I've just known over the years from attending CAFO. I think it was like my 13th CAFO that I've attended every year for 13 years. And so we're like family. And I could have canceled. CAFO actually reached out and said, if you need to cancel coming and you aren't going to be able to present. But I really felt like, no. I want to go. It is my joy and my passion to go. It is my calling to do what I do. And it was like I needed to be there. I wanted to be there. I needed to be there. And so I did. I made that choice to go. And I was blessed because there were folks who hugged me, said they've been praying for me and our family. A few folks gave me cards. And I just felt, even there, I felt like I was with family, and I just felt supported, and that I was wrapped around by this community. And that was a very positive experience. I mean, I wasn't able to go to, I taught my workshop, and I interacted with all of the folks that stopped by our booth because that's my passion, right? I love that. But I didn't have any headspace to like go to somebody else's workshop and take in any information. I went to all of the general sessions, and from the worship to the prayer to the speakers there, that was enough of what I needed. And I got my cup filled there. So community is so important on this parenting journey. You might not lose a child or a grandchild, or you might. Maybe you have. You may not have a kid go into a group home or be incarcerated, or you might, or maybe you already have. You might not have a raging, aggressive, or violent kiddo in your home, or you might, or you already do. You might not have a child run away, or you might, or maybe you have a child right now that you can't find. You don't know where that child is. You might not have a child in psychiatric care, or you might, maybe you do right now, right? Whatever the case. Now, these are some of the lowest lows, right? This is the valley, this is the pit. These are the harder things, right? But they happen, and they happen to all of us on this journey. Jesus promised, he said, you're going to have trials and tribulation in this life, but I have overcome the world, right? We need in-person people who will come and literally wrap their arms around us and cry with us and pray for us. And we need this virtual community. Those of you listening today, those who know from social media groups or online groups, we know those folks and they feel like friends. There are people like when I go to CAFO or when I go to Replanted, places that I go just once a year and I connect with people just once a year. They're like friends. It's like old home week because, we stay in touch on social media and we see what each other's doing on social media. We might be guests on each other's podcasts on occasion, but when we're together, we're together and it's community. So even when you don't get to meet that person or those people in person, it's still such an important and invaluable community that wraps around us because we can pray for one another and encourage one another. Even if we're never in person with one another, we can still pray. And when God's people pray, the person who's being prayed for does feel it and experience it. Because there's lots of terrible things about social media, but one thing is it does activate a vast network of prayer warriors, right? Prayer warriors can be instantly activated. I knew the second I posted on social media that our family needed prayer because my grandson Killian was unresponsive. Like hundreds of people responded to that. People are still responding to that. And knowing that people were praying. And I would, even when I was in Wyoming and my husband and I stayed in a nearby hotel, and at night, I would, before I, fell asleep, I would kind of scroll through a little bit and see and read the comments. I couldn't always, I didn't respond to every single comment that people left. But I read every one of them. I read the prayers that people typed and posted, and just knew people were praying for us. So it was sort of a visible, digital, visible reminder. I knew people were praying, and I knew what they were praying, and I knew what they were saying, and we felt it. And that is so, so important. So when you go scrolling through social media, because this has been a reminder to me on numerous occasions, and somebody's asking for prayer about something, especially those in this community, stop for a second and pray. Stop and pray. And every time that person crosses your mind, stop and pray. It is so important to do that. Because we need, whether it's virtual or in person, we need to experience that, wrapping arms around each other and crying with us. We can feel that. And Psalm 34, verse 18 says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." And I have to say that I know better than ever what brokenhearted and crushed feels like. Um, we all experience times where we're brokenhearted and crushed. And the good news is the Lord draws near to us during these painful seasons. We can experience his nearness. And sometimes that's through our tribe of fellow foster and adoptive parents who are the hands and feet of Jesus during those times. And through them, we feel the embrace of God, the comfort of God. Sometimes we are on the receiving end of that comfort. I have experienced that now. Other times we give comfort. We are here for each other. And I pray that this podcast is that for you. If you're a new listener, becomes that for you, that it is a way for you to experience community and the comfort that comes with it, because this is a very unique community. Nobody, unless you are a foster or adoptive or a kinship caregiver, nobody really understands this journey, right? Nobody really understands the difference of parenting, traditional parenting versus parenting a kiddo who's experienced trauma, who's come to us and had experienced adversity and trauma before coming to us. And then if there was prenatal exposure to alcohol, it's next level. It's, the trauma is compounded. The hard is harder. And so nobody really experiences it unless you're living it. And we're living it. Those of us, if you're listening to my voice, your fellow listeners, we are all on this journey and we get it because we are here and we need each other. And I want to be on this journey with you, right? I don't want to be here without you because I need you in your community. And I believe you need me in my community. We are one community. And I hope that that is how you feel. That you feel that this is your community and that I'm part of your community because I'm grateful for you. And this was a crazy episode because I started out with the high of this is our 500th episode and that's very celebratory and I'm so excited and I feel honored and privileged to be able to come to you each week. And I'm just so blessed by the fact that you choose to tune in to this podcast and listen to me and whoever we may have on as a guest, and that you keep coming back and that you even take time to send me an email or reach out on social media. And I love that. And I am so blessed and I am honored and I don't take that lightly. And I've grown over the years to be very picky about who we even have on as a guest, because my goal with every episode is to make sure that you are ministered to and that each episode is worth your time. So that is to me a blessing and an honor. But also knowing, just like the journey, we have these high highs, but we also have these low lows. And, while my family has been going through a low low, I also can say that the Lord has drawn near and that I can be thankful because I have you. I have this community of people who have wrapped around our family and who have prayed and who have sent little messages and who have reached out. And I am so grateful for that. So even in our darkest times, we can experience the love of God and peace and hope. And it comes through our community as well. So thank you for being on this roller coaster episode with me. I am grateful that you choose to listen to the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast. Whether you are a faithful weekly listener, you've been listening for a long time, you listen occasionally, or maybe this is your first episode, I'm here to inspire you and to encourage you and to equip you for your parenting journey. So thank you for tuning in today. Be sure to check out our resources, right? We have some great resources that you can find on our website. You heard about our support community, our online Hope for the FASD Journey support community. Talk about community. We meet the first 3 Tuesdays of every month, and it is one of my favorite things to do aside from this podcast because it's that meeting through Zoom. So we get to see each other, talk to each other, pray with and for each other, and learn from each other. And I just would not want to ever be on this FASD parenting journey without my people in that group. I am so, so grateful for each and every one of you. I know many of you listen, and I'm thankful. And if you're feeling like you need that community, please check out the support group, the Hope for the FASD Journey support group. I have online and in-person training. Every month we do one free intro to FASD online workshop, and it's 1 hour. It's free. It's great for not only parents just trying to figure out this FASD thing, but also if you have, grandparents, the babysitter, the Sunday school teacher, the youth group leader, the school teacher, adult children, the babysitter, whatever, anybody and everybody who's in your child's life interacting with your child, and you're like, you guys need to know about FASD. Like, you can't interact with my kid without understanding that their brain works differently. That 1 hour free intro is so good for them because it's just 1 hour. It's free, and they're going to get the basics. They're going to begin to understand, oh, this is the brain, right? They're going to learn all of that. So it's a great tool to help educate your community, interacting with your kiddos, as well as other workshops that we do. I typically do a 3-hour workshop once a month. I know in October, I don't think we have a 3-hour on schedule that I know of, but my brain is a little foggy from grief. But we are starting at the end of October, the last Thursday of October. We are starting. It would be the first of 5 3-hour sessions. So every Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern time, for 3 hours. I would say consecutive Thursday nights, but I know one of those Thursdays, if you say consecutive, would be Thanksgiving. And of course, we're not going to do a workshop on Thanksgiving. So it goes into the first week of December, but it'd be 5 Thursday nights in a row where we go deep into using the facets neurobehavioral model that I teach, and it's 3 hours each time. So it's sort of like the most in-depth session that I do. So there's still time to register for that because that begins the end of October. And I also travel and speak and come, if you have a support group or you have, foster parent group, foster adoption group, whatever it is, I do travel and speak, and I also bring people into us, and I do in person and online. So if you're looking for anything specific, reach out because I'd be happy to work with you on providing great training for your families as well. So all of the details for the training, the coaching, the support group are on our website, justicefororphansny.org, as well as my blog. I release a blog post every month, and then you can sign up for my monthly newsletter, which comes out every month. But you guys, I know many of you read the blog and get the newsletter, and I do have to apologize, and I know you'll extend me grace, but in September, I just did not get to finish writing my blog post, so we didn't get to the newsletter. So I will be working on that. So it's going to come out a little late because I know in August I released a blog post about, we did a blog post about our kids going back to school, and I promised, because there's a lot, that's a loaded conversation. There's a lot of information in talking about school with our kids, especially our kids with FASD. And I promised that I would also do a blog post on, educating our kids, because there's public school, special education, there's private school, there's homeschool, and every time I'm whether I do a training, I speak in person, so many times the conversation about school comes up because our kids don't do well in school. When you have a 5 or 6 year old who's getting suspended 2 weeks into the school year, something's not working, right? What is going on? So I've been working on a blog post, kind of like the pros and cons of public school, private school, and homeschool when it pertains to kids, especially with our kids with FASD. So I've been working on it, but in the midst of working on it is when our grandson passed. So I will be getting back to it. So I do apologize if you are a regular follower of the blog and like to read those and like to get the newsletter. We will be getting back to it, I promise. That little gap there, but understandably so. And I know you'll extend me grace for that. So, but you can sign up at the website to get the newsletter as well. It's just once a month. I do not bombard you with a bunch of stuff. It's just once a month, an email, digital newsletter comes to your email. Or at the end, subscribe to this podcast. Leave us a review, share about this podcast with your fellow foster and adoptive parent friends so that they can tune in too and be encouraged and feel supported. Follow us on our social media pages. And again, I am grateful that you spent your valuable time with me today. I'm thrilled to have you along for the journey, and I just value you so much and that you took the time out of your important schedule to tune in and listen. So thank you. Be blessed. Until next time, this is Sandra Flach of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Adoption and Foster Care Journey podcast, brought to you by Justice for Orphans. We hope you were encouraged today. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review, and share it with your fellow foster and adoptive parent friends so they can be encouraged too. Be sure to find and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Justice for Orphans, and check out our website for vital resources at justicefororphansny.org.